here's something that will completely mess with your head. In 2008, when the stock market crashed 57%, some investors made money. Real money. Serious, life-changing money. 8,000% returns. While everyone else was watching their portfolio get cut in half, these people were getting rich. The crazy part? It wasn't skill. It wasn't luck. It wasn't because they picked the right stocks or had some insider information. It was their type. Their psychological type. And here's what kills me about this. The moment the crash starts, your type is already locked in. You can't change it. You can only discover it. So the question is, which type are you? Because your answer to that question determines whether you're going to be broke for the next decade or whether you're going to be building real wealth. I studied every major financial crash going back 100 years. 1929, 2000, 2008, 2020. I looked at what happened to investors across all of them, and I found something fascinating. 3% of investors survived every single one. Not just survived, they actually made money. Some of them made life-changing amounts. The other 97% got destroyed, and I'm not using that word lightly. They lost everything they had. Some of them lost their houses, some of them lost their retirements, and the worst part, many of them never came back. They stopped investing, they became scared of the market forever, they watched from the sidelines while other people built generational wealth. So what made the difference between the 3% who survived and the 97% who got destroyed? I thought it was intelligence. I thought maybe it was education or connections, but it wasn't any of that. It was their type. And here's the thing, these three types of survivors aren't hidden. They're right there in plain sight, but most people don't even know they exist. So today I'm going to show you exactly what these three types are, and I'm going to show you real people, real crashes, real money, and then you're going to know exactly which type you are and whether you need to change. Let me introduce you to the three types real quick, and then we're going to go deep into each one with real examples. Type 1, the contrarian. This person sees the crash happening and does something that sounds insane. While everyone else is selling, they're buying. While everyone else is in a panic, they're calm. They're hunting for opportunities. They're the ones who made 8,000% returns in 2008. They're rare, maybe 1 to 2% of the population. Type 2, the disciplined. This person has a plan and they stick to it no matter what happens. When the market's going up, they're investing the same amount. When the market's going down 50%, they're still investing the same amount. They don't try to be heroes, they don't try to time the market, they just keep the machine going. About 3 to 5% of investors actually do this. Type 3, the observer. This person doesn't try to buy the dip or anything like that. What they do is they build cash reserves during the good times. Then when the crash comes, they have ammunition, they can deploy it, they're calm, they're patient, they're comfortable waiting. About 2 to 3% of investors have this temperament. That's 9 out of 100 who survive, 91 who get crushed. Now let me show you what this actually looks like with real money, real people, and real crashes. 2008, the stock market just hit 666. That's the lowest point. The S&P 500 down 57% from the peak. People are losing their minds. Unemployment is spiking. The news is talking about another Great Depression. Banks are failing. Lehman Brothers just collapsed. It's absolute chaos. Most investors are panicking. They're selling everything. They're taking the losses and trying to get to safety. But one investor, a guy named Chris Sacca, he saw this differently. He looked at the crash and thought opportunity. Real estate was getting crushed. Everyone said real estate was dead. The market will never recover, they said. Chris started buying properties at 75% discounts. 75% discounts. People thought he was insane. The economy is collapsing and you're buying real estate? But Chris understood something that most people don't. When everyone is terrified, prices are wrong. That's when real wealth gets transferred. From the panicked to the calm, from the emotional to the disciplined. Chris didn't make his money in the good years, he made it in the crash. Those properties he bought at 75% discounts, by 2015 they doubled, by 2020 they tripled. He made more money from the crash than he would have made in a 10-year bull market. But here's the thing that most people don't understand about contrarians like Chris. You either have this temperament or you don't. You can't develop it just by reading an article. Your brain is either wired to act calm when everyone else is freaking out, or it isn't. It's neurochemistry, it's psychology that's probably been with you since you were a kid. If you're not a contrarian by nature, you can't fake it. And that's okay, because the second type, the disciplined, they make even more money over time than contrarians do. Different crash, different person. 2008 again, Sarah is 28 years old. She has a plan. She's going to invest $400 every single month into an S&P 500 index fund. No matter what, that's her commitment. The market's going up, $400 goes in. The market's going down, $400 still goes in. So the crash happens. The market falls 57%. Sarah's portfolio is getting cut in half. Her friends are panicking. They're calling her asking if she thinks the market's going to zero. The financial news is apocalyptic, but Sarah doesn't stop. $400 every month like clockwork. Month after month, she's buying as the market gets cheaper and cheaper. For 3 years this goes on. The market is down, the recovery is slow, but Sarah is still there. Every month, same amount. She puts in about $15,000 total during this period. That's $15,000 during some of the scariest years for investors in modern history. Fast forward to 2020, that $15,000 has turned into $120,000. That's not from the recovery bouncing back, that's from the crash crash years. That's from the compound effect of buying at lower and lower prices while everyone else was frozen in fear. Now here's the thing about Sarah that you need to understand. Sarah didn't need to be a genius. She didn't need to know when the bottom was. She didn't need to be brave like Chris Sacca buying real estate at discounts. What she did was she committed to something mechanical, something that didn't require emotion. That's the power of the disciplined type. They don't have to be smart, they just have to be consistent. And that's why more millionaires are made through this method than any other method in the history of investing. Third crash, different time. COVID 2020. The market drops 30% in 5 weeks. That's insane. It's faster than 2008. People are terrified. They don't know if the economy is going to survive. They don't know if they're going to have a job next month. They're panic selling, they're taking losses, they're trying to get to safety. But the observer type, they're not panicking. Why? Because they were prepared. One investor had been building cash reserves for 3 years. Why? Because they knew a crash would come eventually. They didn't know when, they didn't know how bad, but they knew crashes happen about every 8 to 10 years, so they prepared. So when COVID happened and the market fell 30%, they had $100,000 in cash sitting there, just waiting. Everyone thought this person was an idiot for the previous 3 years. Why are you holding cash? Cash is trash, you're missing out on gains. But then the crash comes and suddenly that cash looks like gold. The person deploys $50,000 in March right at the bottom. The market is terrifying. Every headline is scary, but they're buying. By July, 5 months later, their $50,000 has turned into $65,000, 30% gain in a crash that everyone thought was the end of the world. But that's not the real gain. The real gain comes over time. That $50,000 deployed in March 2020 is worth about $175,000 today. If they hold it, that's a 350% return from deploying cash during the scariest moment. So let me recap what we've seen here. Chris Sacca, the Contrarian, makes 8,000% by buying real estate while everyone's selling. Sarah, the Disciplined, makes 500% through mechanical monthly investing during the crash. The Observer makes 350% by having cash reserves and deploying at the right moment. 3 different approaches, 3 different temperaments, but one thing they all have in common. They're part of the 3% who survived. But wait, let me tell you the part that really gets me. Those 3 people, they're outliers, but not because they're smarter, not because they're luckier. They're outliers because they did something different from everyone else. And here's the thing, 97% of investors, they don't fall into any of these 3 categories. They do the opposite. In 2008, when Sacca was buying, 97% was selling. When Sarah was investing, 97% were frozen and scared, not investing anymore. When the Observer had cash and was ready to deploy, 97% were fully invested and terrified. So what exactly do the 97% do wrong? Well, they all make one mistake. Just one. They let emotions decide instead of following a plan. That's it. That's literally the only difference. A person with a plan, a person with a system, a person who commits to something mechanical, they survive. A person who reacts emotionally every time the market moves, they get destroyed. The 97% are all over the place emotionally. Some panic and sell at the worst time. Some wait for the crash and then buy too late after it's already recovering. Some do nothing at all. But they all end up in the same place, which is worse off than they started. Now I want you to ask yourself some honest questions, because based on your answers, I'm gonna tell you which type you are right now, not which type you want to be, not which type you think you are, which type you actually are based on your behaviors and your temperament. Question 1. The market just dropped 30% in the last 3 months. Your portfolio is down. It's a lot of money. What's your first emotion? Do you panic? Do you feel curious? Do you feel calm? Think about your actual gut reaction, not the answer you think you should give. If your first reaction is panic, that's telling you something. You're probably not a contrarian. Contrarians don't panic. If your first reaction is curiosity, if you're wondering where the opportunities are, you might have some contrarian tendencies. If your first reaction is calm, like you already expected this might happen and you're just watching to see what comes next, you might be an observer. Question 2. Do you have a fixed monthly investment that goes in automatically, or do you think about each investment individually before you make it? If you think about each investment individually, if you're trying to decide whether now is a good time to buy, whether you should wait, whether you should put in more or less, then you're not disciplined. You're emotional. Disciplined people have a number, $400 a month, $1,000 a month, $500, whatever it is, and that amount goes in automatically. They don't think about it. They don't decide. It just happens. If you have that kind of system, you're disciplined. If you don't, you're in the 97%. Question 3. How much cash do you have right now? Enough for 6 months of living expenses? Or did you put everything in the market because you don't want to miss out on gains? Think about this one carefully. If you have 6 months of cash reserves, you're an observer. You're prepared, you're comfortable with uncertainty. If you have less than that, if you're fully invested, then you're vulnerable. You don't have ammunition for when the crash comes. You're going to be terrified. So think about these 3 questions. Which type describes your current behavior? And here's what I want you to understand. Most of you watching this video are in the 97%. That's not an insult. That's just statistics. That's the reality. But the good news is this. You can change. You can move from the 97% to the 3%. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's possible. And the fact that you're watching this video, the fact that you're even even asking these questions means you're probably ready to make a change. So if you figured out which type you are, here's what you need to know about becoming the type that actually survives the next crash. And listen, there's going to be a next crash. I don't know when it's coming. Could be tomorrow, could be a few years, but it's coming every 8 to 10 years. Like clockwork, the market corrects significantly. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So the question is, are you going to be ready or are you going to be scrambling like the other 97%? Let me start with contrarians, because honestly, if you're not a natural contrarian, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. You either have the temperament to stay calm while everyone's panicking or you don't. It's one of those things that's pretty much set in your brain. But here's what's interesting about contrarians. They're not actually smarter about the market. They're just psychologically built differently. Their heart rate goes down when they see red. Most people's goes up. It's like fear and excitement are flipped in their brains. If you're a contrarian, you probably already know it. You've been in situations where everyone's freaking out and you're the calm one. You're the one asking questions. You're the one thinking about opportunity while everyone else is thinking about survival. If that's you, then your job before the next crash is simple. Build cash. Don't be fully invested all the time. During bull markets, when everyone's excited and stocks are at all-time highs, that's when contrarians need to be building dry powder. Building cash, because when the crash comes, that's when you deploy, that's when you hunt, and that's when you make your generational wealth. But for most of you, you're not a contrarian. You're either disciplined or you're in the 97%. So let's talk about how to become the disciplined type. This is the type that actually ends up with the most wealth in most scenarios, because discipline works. Mathematics works, time works, compound interest works. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be brave. You just need to be consistent. Here's the system. First, you pick a number. It should be a number that doesn't hurt if the market crashes 50%. For most people, that's between 1 and 5% of their annual income. If you make $100,000 a year, maybe it's $1,000 a month. If you make $200,000, maybe it's $2,000. If you make $50,000, maybe it's $300. The point is not the amount. The point is that it's an amount that you can afford to invest even if everything goes wrong. Even if you lose your job, even if there's a recession, you can still afford this amount. Step 2 is the critical one. You set up automatic investing. And I mean automatic from your bank, not from an investment app where you have to log in and think about it. From your bank directly to your brokerage account. First of the month, every month, that money just goes. You don't get a chance to second guess yourself. You don't get a chance to think, oh, the market's down, maybe I should wait. The money's already there. It's already invested. This is where most people fail, by the way. They set up the system mentally, but not literally. They think they'll have the discipline, but they don't. You have to automate it. Remove the human decision from the equation. Step 3, and this is hard for people, is you don't look at your portfolio for 3 months at a time. I know that sounds crazy. We live in a world where you can check your portfolio by opening an app. It's right there. But checking it is what kills you. Every time you check it during a volatile time, your brain is triggered. Your amygdala is activated. You're experiencing fear, and fear makes you do irrational things. So here's what I want you to do. Delete the investment app from your phone. Actually delete it, not just log out. Delete it. Block the website in your browser. Make it a little bit harder to check. You're training your brain to ignore the noise. You're training your brain to trust the system instead of reacting to feelings. Step 4 is what happens when the crash actually comes, and it will come. When the market drops 20, 30, 40%, you're going to get scared. Your friends are calling you. Your family is asking if they should sell. The news is talking about depression. Your portfolio looks terrible. That's when you remember. You're already doing the right thing. You're already investing at lower prices. You've been investing all along, and now those lower prices mean you're getting more shares for your money. That's the power of discipline. You don't need to do anything. The system is already working. Just keep your hands off. Don't sell. Don't panic. Don't try to be a hero. Just let the machine keep going. Now let's talk about becoming the observer. This is the third type. And honestly, if you can't be a natural contrarian and you're not quite disciplined enough yet to commit to monthly investing, observer might be your bridge. It's a really good intermediate step. Observer starts now, before the crash. During the bull market, when times are good, when your income is stable, when you're not worried about money, that's when you build reserves. Cash reserves, real cash, not stocks, not bonds. Cash. How much? Start with 3 months of living expenses. That's the basic level. If you spend $5,000 a month, that's $15,000 in cash. Just sitting there. It's not invested. It's not making any return. It just exists. For most people, this feels wrong. Why would you hold cash when you could be investing it? Because cash is optionality. Cash is power. When everyone else is forced to sell because they're in a panic and they need liquidity, you have cash. You can buy, you can deploy, you can take advantage of fear. If you can get to 6 months of cash reserves, even better. If you can get to a year, you're in the top 1%. But start with 3 months. Step 2 for observers is to write down your deployment rule before the crash happens. Write it down on paper. Put it somewhere you can see it. Here's an example. If the market falls 20% from recent highs, I deploy $50,000. If it falls 30%, I deploy another $50,000. If it falls 40% or more, I deploy everything that's left. Write it down. Be specific. Be clear. Because when the crash comes, when you're emotional, when your friends are panicking, you don't want to have to decide. You just want to follow the rule. Here's why this matters. Emotions are the enemy of good decisions in crashes. When the market is down 40% and you're looking at your cash pile, your brain is going to tell you it might go down another 40%. It might go to zero. You need to have decided beforehand what you're going to do. Then when the crash comes, you're just following following a plan, not making a decision. It's so much easier to follow a plan than to make a decision when you're terrified. Think about what this actually looks like. If you deployed $50,000 on March 10th, 2020, when COVID crashed the market, by today that $50,000 would be worth about $175,000. But you had to sit through the terror. You had to watch the news say that companies were going bankrupt. You had to ignore the fear. But if you had your deployment rule written down, you didn't have to decide. You just followed the rule. Now here's the beautiful thing. Once you've deployed your observer cash, you can transition to being disciplined. You put the rest of your monthly savings back into mechanical monthly investing. You've got the crash in your rearview mirror. You've got positions in the market that are already recovering. You've got your monthly contributions going in. Now you're bulletproof. You're hitting it from multiple angles. You're not just fully disciplined and you're not just a contrarian hunter. You're a hybrid. Here's the combination that actually works best for most normal people. You have 3 to 6 months of cash sitting there as your observer emergency fund. You have a monthly investment amount that goes in automatically, like clockwork, your disciplined contribution. And during bull markets, when things are good, you don't add leverage. You don't take crazy risks. You just maintain. You maintain your discipline. You maintain your cash reserves. You wait for the crash. When the crash comes, you deploy your cash. You stick with your monthly investing. You're going the other direction from the 97%. The 97% are panicking. You're calm. The 97% are selling. You're buying. The 97% are frozen. You have a plan and you're executing it. That's how you survive. That's how you become wealthy. Now, I want to paint a picture of what's going to happen. It's 2027. This is a hypothetical, but stick with me. The market just crashed 40% from its recent high. It happened fast, in about 5 weeks, just like COVID. Maybe faster. Everyone's panicking. Your friends are calling you, asking if they should sell. The news is talking about a recession for sure, maybe a depression. Your portfolio is down. Depending on how much you have invested, you could be looking at a $50,000 loss, or $100,000, or more. That's real money. That hurts to think about. But here's where the three types diverge. The 97% are checking their portfolios every 5 minutes. They're trying to decide what to do. They're thinking maybe they should sell, get out, get to safety, lock in the loss, as painful as it is. Some of them will, some of them will sit there frozen, some will panic sell at the absolute bottom. The contrarians are calm. They're reviewing their cash pile. They're making a list of what they want to buy. They're calling their real estate brokers or their stockbrokers. They're ready. They're hunting. The disciplined people, they're not doing anything. They're going about their life. They remember that they have a system. They remember that $400 is going to go in next month no matter what the market does. They'll keep going in the month after that. And the month after that, they're going to be buying these falling prices and they don't have to do anything. The system is taking care of it. The observers, they're checking their written rule. Let me see. Market is down 40%. According to my rule, I deploy my remaining cash. It's terrifying, but it's not a decision. It's a rule. They deploy, they buy, their cash turns into position. And while everyone else is bleeding, they're positioned for the recovery. 3 years later, it's 2030. The market has recovered. Actually, it surpassed the previous high. S&P is at new all-time highs. The contrarians have tripled their money, maybe more. The disciplined people have added probably 400,000 more into the system over those 3 years, even during the crash, and all that money they added during the low prices is now worth 50% more. The observers have deployed their cash and it's up 70% and they're back to contributing monthly. Meanwhile, the 97%, the ones who sold, they're sitting on the sidelines. They're waiting for confirmation that it's safe. They're watching everyone else make money. They're feeling like they missed it. Some of them will get back in, but probably at higher prices. Some of them won't get back in for years. Some of them will never get back in. They'll keep telling themselves that the market is rigged, that it's different this time, that they're not going to invest again, and that's the real tragedy. Because that happened in 2009 and 2010 and 2011. It happened in March and April of 2020. And it's going to happen again. The people who sell at the bottom, they don't just lose money on that single position. They lose years of wealth building because they're too scared to come back. They miss the biggest bull market that comes next. Meanwhile, the 3%, they're compounding. They're getting richer while other people are getting poorer. So the question is, which type are you going to be in 2027 when the crash comes? Because there will be a crash. You can count on it. There's always a crash. Markets go up, then they correct. That's the pattern. It's been the pattern for hundreds of years. So you need to make a decision now, before the crash, about which type you're going to be. If you're a natural contrarian, go ahead and start building your cash reserves now. Don't put everything in the market. Keep dry powder. If you're not a contrarian but you want to be wealthy, commit to being disciplined. Pick your number. Set up the automation. Delete the app. Commit to 3 years of not checking your portfolio. Actually, commit to 5 years. Commit to not looking at it during downturns. If you're somewhere in between, if you're not quite ready to commit to being fully disciplined, start with being an observer. Build your cash 3 to 6 months. Write down your deployment rule. That's enough to get you ahead of 97% of people. Pick one. Don't try to do all three. Don't try to be a contrarian hunter and also have monthly discipline and also have cash reserves. That's too complicated. Pick one and commit to it, because that's what separates the 3% from the 97%. It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's commitment to a system. It's refusing to let emotions make your decisions. One more thing before you go. I want you to imagine your life in 2035. That's 10 years from now. Markets are good. You made it through a crash in 2027 or whenever it comes. You stayed the course. If you were disciplined, you kept investing. If you were contrarian, you deployed your capital. If you were observer, you executed your rule. You're on the other side of it now. Your portfolio has recovered and surpassed the previous high. You have more money than you did in 2025. You probably have a lot more money. Enough to think about some different things. Maybe taking time off work, maybe not having to work at all, maybe traveling, maybe helping your family, maybe starting a business that's available to you. That future is available, but it requires you to make a decision now, before the crash, before you're emotional, before you're scared. You need to decide now which type you're going to be, and you need to set up the system now so that when the crash comes, you're not making decisions. You're just executing. So here's what I want you to do. In the comments below, tell me which type you are right now. Don't tell me which type you want to be. Tell me which type you actually are based on your real behavior. Are you contrarian, disciplined, observer, or are you in the 97%? Be honest, because the first step to changing is admitting where you are. And I'm telling you right now, if you're in the 97%, that's okay. It's actually more common than being in the 3%. But you can change, you can move, you can be different in the next crash. After you comment, please subscribe and turn on notifications because the next video is going to be exactly how to build the plan. If you're disciplined, here's how to set up automatic investing. If you're observer, here's exactly how to build your cash reserves. If you're contrarian, here's how to identify opportunities before everyone else sees them. We're going to go tactical, we're going to go specific, so you don't miss that. And before you leave, share this video with someone you know, someone who's always stressed about money, someone who's always worried about the market, someone who can't sleep at night because they're fully invested and they're scared. Because this video is going to help them understand that there are people who survive every single crash, and they can be one of them. Send it to them. Let them know. One last thing. When the crash comes, and it will come, I want you to remember this video. I want you to remember which type you decided to be. I want you to remember that there was a plan. I want you to remember that 3% of investors make money in crashes, and you decided right now that you were going to be in that 3%, not the 97%. When the fear comes, when your friends are panicking, when the news is apocalyptic, you remember you have a system, you have a plan. You're not reacting, you're executing. That's the difference between being broke and being wealthy after a crash. That's the difference that changes your whole life.